Good morning, everyone. Like all of you, we have been following the current animated conversation about the future of legal education. It's hard to miss, as it's everywhere. In the newspapers, in task force reports by professional regulators, in educational research center reports, it's publications by legal academics, and as Gillian Hadfield noted last night, even President Obama couldn't help but weigh in last month to what the New York Times has called the hotly debated issue inside the beleaguered legal academy. And as everyone else has also noticed, the dominant narrative of the current discourse is that legal education is plagued by crisis. And if serious reforms are not made, the future is bleak. The crises run the gamut. They include assertions that law faculties don't adequately prepare students in the skills of lawyering, that legal education is too expensive, especially in today's climate of insufficient employment opportunities, that law professors are out of touch with reality and too focused on their own research, and even that legal education fails to adequately serve the public's true needs. Perhaps because of our particular positions in the law faculty, I, as a McGill law professor who has just spent 3 years as Associate Dean Graduate Studies, and my colleague Kate Glover, who is a doctoral student in law at McGill, we've asked ourselves, where is graduate legal education in this discourse? Our search has led us to notice a gaping hole, because graduate studies in law seems to be either missing or forgotten, as the main focus is on what we call undergraduate legal education, namely the programs that lead to a degree of JD, LLB, BCL, LLL. To the extent that graduate legal education is discussed, it's often portrayed as part of the problem, the object of blame. Those who lament the academization of legal education assert that graduate studies merely perpetuates the vicious cycle of legal education that is removed, as this comic indicates, from the real world. Because when graduate students become law professors, they will also care about a nexus between their teaching and research and will teach law just as academically as their predecessors. Other times it's the subject of criticism. Graduate programs are critiqued for not living up to their potential, for being inadequate, impoverished, and sometimes they're cynically viewed as merely a means of harvesting bodies in a way that is financially beneficial by subsidizing the cost of legal education in the main part of the faculty, its undergraduate program. Our paper seeks to uncover the implications of excluding graduate studies from the discourse, reveal some of the potential benefits of its inclusion. In short, we believe that thinking about graduate studies is important and can provide valuable lessons that may improve graduate legal education in and of itself, and provide a useful lens through which to examine the future of the law faculty and its undergraduate programs. So, Kate, how about if you tell us about the shortcomings of the current discourse? In other words, how do we answer people who say, okay, graduate legal education is missing, so what?
So if graduate legal education is missing from the discourse, Rosalie's question is, so what? So let me point to 3 specific concerns. First, leaving graduate studies out of the conversation is out of sync with what has been happening at Canadian law faculties over the past 30 years. So in short, during this time, there has been a noticeable pattern of growth in graduate programs. For example, in 1983, 13 law faculties in Canada offered graduate programs. Today, graduate students can choose from over 60 program configurations at 18 law faculties. Also today, more than 700 new graduate students enroll in Canadian law faculties every year. Compare that to 30 years ago, when there were only 260 full-time graduate students in law in Canada in total. A second concern is that we are missing out on opportunities to think about and respond to the crises of graduate legal education. So here we're not asking questions like, what is the purpose of graduate studies in law? Where do graduate programs fit within the law faculty? Which programs should be praised and replicated, and which ones shouldn't be? At the same time, we're missing out on opportunities to learn about undergraduate legal education through the lens of graduate studies. Here, we aren't asking questions like, what does the experience of graduate students in law reveal about the current state of undergraduate education in law? And since many of today's graduate students are tomorrow's law professors, as we'll be discussing in a few minutes, how should graduate programs be designed to optimize the future of undergraduate legal education? A third concern pertains to a problematic distinction. When the future of legal education is discussed in undergraduate terms only, it replicates the traditional distinction between legal practice and legal theory. And here, graduate study maps onto academia, whereas undergraduate study maps onto practice. This is problematic, first of all, because it is much too simplistic to draw stark distinctions between the categories on the left-hand side and the right-hand side of this table. Further, it generates the impression that legal education programs can and should be defined by stereotypical assumptions about the career aspirations of its students, law professor versus lawyer. Yet graduates of law programs, as we know, are not limited to these two job options. And an education in law should help students learn about all of the possibilities of who they are and who they can become, rather than lock them into particular categories at the outset. Finally, the strict distinction creates the impression that graduate and undergraduate studies unfold in separate silos within a law faculty. And as we will be discussing in a few minutes, that is certainly not the case. There is much overlap between the two. So in light of these concerns, the next question is, how can they be overcome? How can we bring graduate studies into the discourse? Rosalie?
Of course, there's no silver bullet to overcoming these shortcomings, but we believe that a good first step is to reframe the discourse itself. Instead of perpetuating distinctions and silos and polarizing graduate and undergraduate studies in the process, we should be thinking about the law faculty as an integrated whole of place, program, and people, a community of learners that necessarily includes the people, programs, and places of both graduate and undergraduate studies, as well as the interactions between them. We should view the law faculty as an institution with a single broad mission, one that thinks about legal education holistically, and which we suggest can be articulated as the cultivation of jurists. Reconceptualizing legal education to cultivate jurists has similar aspirations to David's concept of citizenship and Rod and Tom's notion of a community of learners in quest of virtuous lives. Our paper discusses in more detail the various connotations of the term jurists. As we know, it's sometimes used to refer to eminent judges. At other times, it evokes the memory of the jurisconsults of Roman law days. But while used in different contexts, several unifying currents run through its uses. First, it's a general term, and thereby avoids pigeonholing law students and graduates into categories such as academics, theoreticians, practitioners, policymakers. Second, it evokes a calling that transcends what someone does with a law degree. And in that sense, it transcends both the practicing bar and the academy. It focuses instead on contribution to society, to legal thought, intellectual reflection, and creative and critical thinking. These aspirations apply equally to graduate and undergraduate students, whatever roles they will play in society. And while these jurists will, of course, have undertaken their legal educations at different levels and at different stages of their lives, and will ultimately appear in different iterations in society, the legal education they receive should prepare them all to be creative and molding forces in legal progress. Because, as Rod MacDonald, who we all wish could be here today, has taught us, legal education is at its core about teaching how to deal with the complexities of people in interaction with each other. So now I think it's time to switch gears. So far, we've established that graduate studies is missing from the discourse and that this has negative implications. If we conceive of legal education as cultivating jurists, and we view the law faculty holistically, Now we need to focus more on specifics. What particular lessons can the law faculty learn about its future when graduate studies is included in the discourse?
So the initial lesson has to do with the mission of a law faculty, and the lesson is this: thinking about graduate studies can help a faculty see gaps in the articulation and implementation of its mission. And let me use McGill as an example of this. So the primary mission of McGill's law faculty is in its commitment to transsystemia. And this means that students learn from multiple legal and interdisciplinary perspectives, traditions, and languages. Now, when this mission was developed in the 1990s, no one was asking about its impact on the faculty's graduate programs. No one asked, how can the graduate program be transsystemic? Should it be? And no one asked, how should the graduate programs inform the development of the transsystemic approach? As a result, even though McGill has a significant and vibrant graduate program, the articulation of its mission only speaks to the undergraduate level. This not only makes the mission of the graduate program somewhat uncertain, but it also creates the impression that graduate studies are only a secondary part of the faculty. Now, the implementation of McGill's graduate program also reflects the fact that the faculty's investment in developing transsystemia does not extend beyond the undergraduate level. Here's why. Like their counterparts in other North American law schools, McGill's grad students fulfill most of their course requirements by taking upper year undergraduate courses. But they don't have access to the courses that are designed to cultivate the transsystemic thinker, the foundational first year and second year courses. This means that, unlike their undergraduate classmates, graduate students must take courses without any formal instruction in the faculty's primary pedagogical approach. They are simply expected to catch on. Another lesson that we learn if we include graduate studies in the discourse is that it can help to ease the identity crisis that we've been talking about that faculties have traditionally faced within the university. Namely, that as a so-called professional faculty, it doesn't belong within the university. However, a vibrant graduate program, one in which students produce high-quality scholarship and go on to become high-caliber legal scholars, shows that a law faculty can be a serious and dynamic research institution. And as a result, it can help to quell concerns that come from the legal community and from within the rest of the university that law faculties properly are in the university and that they do belong. Also, consider the effect of graduate students in law pursuing interdisciplinary research. This research can lead to co-supervision, as well as mixed membership on thesis advisory committees, and graduate student participation in multidisciplinary research institutes and teams. Each of these creates research-based links between the law faculty and the rest of the university, and helps to confirm that a law faculty is a legitimate member and a contributing member of the university as a whole. So these are only two specific consequences of including graduate legal studies in the discourse, and it raises the question, is that all there is?
In short, no. Let's return for a moment to our earlier discussion of reconceiving legal education holistically as the formation of jurists and the viewing of the law faculty as an integrated whole rather than in separate silos. One of the benefits of doing so is that it actually reflects current reality. Undergraduate and graduate students, in fact, interact in many ways within the law faculty. In the classroom, where LLM and undergraduate law students take classes together and sometimes doctoral students teach them, in physical spaces and activities outside of the classroom, and in access and interaction with professors. Another benefit of viewing the faculty as an integrated whole is that it provides the opportunity to examine the interactions that are actually happening to ensure that they are as optimal as they can be. In our paper, we examine many forms of interaction, but this morning we'll focus only on two: mixed graduate and undergraduate classrooms and graduate student professorial interactions. The shared classroom reflects the current reality, as Kate noted earlier, that in most LLM programs, graduate students take upper year undergraduate courses. This seems to be simply accepted as the most realistic option. And while it may be unrealistic to provide completely separate programs, we should at least be thinking more explicitly about the shared classroom, and we should explore the pedagogical consequences of this model more fully. For one, we need to be conscious of the challenge for the professor. The graduate students are, in many ways, ahead of the rest of the class because they already hold law degrees. But on the other hand, they are often less prepared because they haven't been exposed either substantively or methodologically to the law faculty's culture. This is especially true for international graduate students who, at least at McGill, form a good 2/3 of the class. We need to transform the mixed composition of the course into a pedagogical benefit by using it to change the conversation in the classroom and optimize the opportunities for everyone to learn from each other. For example, exposing undergraduates to grad students from a variety of backgrounds, legal traditions, educational formation, and career aspirations can broaden the lenses through which they view the course, exposing them to different perspectives, inspiring them to ask different questions, and opening their eyes to different legal methodologies. Graduate students can learn a great deal from their undergraduate peers as well. The undergraduates can become informal teachers from whom graduate students can learn comparative perspectives on substantive legal issues and different approaches to legal problem solving. To the extent that this is already happening, it is on an ad hoc rather than on an explicit or conscious basis. In terms of the graduate-student professorial relationship, we often perceive this to be an extra burden for professors, a potentially problematic relationship, but essentially one that is necessary for the benefit of the grad student. We believe that we also need to direct our attention to the benefits flowing from grad students to professors. Professorial research surely benefits from interactions with graduate students, either because they co-write papers and conference presentations together, or because graduate student research adds to their own research agendas. Where the implications are least often recognized is in the undergraduate classroom. I don't know about you, but I have certainly incorporated my graduate students' research and perspectives into my undergraduate courses, and sometimes their ideas and questions even work their way into my exams. So in short, there are many interactions involving grad students in the law faculty, much we can learn from these interactions, and still more to do to optimize them. But looking really into the future, isn't it true that the legal education of tomorrow will be influenced and led, at least in part, by people like Kate and David, graduate students of today, as they are the leaders of tomorrow's law faculty? So Kate, how about if you tell us about that?
So here the short answer is yes. Today's doctoral students will be tomorrow's law teachers, authors, deans, supervisors, committee chairs, colleagues, and a combination of these. And once they are in these roles, as leaders of the law faculty, they will inevitably shape the quality of the education, of legal education that is offered in the future. But the longer answer starts when we acknowledge that today's law faculties are responsible for teaching these leaders of tomorrow. And the question then becomes, what should law faculties do today with respect to doctoral education in order to contribute to the success of legal education in the future? To answer this question, we start from the premise, as Rosalie has already said, that all levels of legal education aim to cultivate jurists. We also accept two well-established principles from the higher education literature. First, that doctoral education is the critical period in the formation of scholars. And second, that a scholar means much more than the production of a dissertation. Putting these together, we believe that the broad overarching aim of doctoral education in law becomes the cultivation of legal scholars with the integrity, the capacity, and the inclination to bear the weight of the discipline's future. This leads to a more practical question, though. How should we design doctoral programs in order to achieve the overarching aim? Each faculty would inevitably answer this question in their own way. But as a starting point, we think that law faculties should help their doctoral students learn about the full range of activities associated with being a legal scholar. These activities fall within 4 domains: the scholarship of discovery, community engagement, teaching, and interdisciplinarity. These are, of course, familiar categories to professors, but they are not at all familiar within doctoral programs, which tend to focus only on the production of a dissertation. And law faculties could easily imagine ways to address the other domains in their doctoral programs. There are a number of examples of this. They could offer legal education seminars or doctoral fellowships, teaching fellowships for their doctoral students. They could include doctoral students in their governance committees. They could include doctoral studies in the teaching of continuing education for the profession, and so on. There are many examples of ways to include this in doctoral education. With a doctoral education that is this broad, though, law faculties should pay attention to the context in which doctoral education takes place. A faculty's institutional culture is the invisible curriculum of its doctoral program. It is the way in which doctoral students learn about disciplinary and institutional values and the informal dimensions of academic life. In conclusion, I'll return to our title, Somewhat Rearranged. We believe that graduate legal education should no longer be forgotten from the discourse on the future of the law faculty. Not only are today's graduate students vital to how the law faculty will operate and educate in the future, but thinking about graduate studies is an opportunity for law faculties to reflect on and be optimistic about their institutional missions and the way in which legal education, both undergraduate and graduate, is provided today and in the future. Thank you.